afternoon, everybody. Welcome. We are so thrilled to spend the next hour with you, and I could not be more thrilled to get spellarized. Did you know that was a thing? During the conference, we learned that we could all get spellarized. So I'm excited to get on a journey where we'll get spellarized together in the next 60 minutes. But before we begin, I want to begin with a couple of ground rules and introduce myself. I'm Anne Marie Burton. I am the Chief of Strategy and Programs at NAMIC, and we're so thrilled to have Tony Speller joining us today. Before we begin, we'll kick off with a video that will introduce you to Tony, and then we're going to get into a Q&A chat. Oh my gosh, Tony, do you see the love? And we haven't even begun. They're spellarized, and we haven't even started, which is exciting. And I think you'll hear why we talk about being spellarized, because we learned about it too last October, and we were so thrilled to bring him on. I've had the privilege of getting to know Tony, and I think you will as well. So we're going to kick it off with our a video. We will then get into a discussion. I always like to say these discussions are really for you. So what I would love is for you to ask as many questions as you want. And you guys already know the drill. I can see the love hearts going up, the emojis. Thank you for the support. Thank you for being here today. And before you ask me what's going on, if you have a question that you want Tony and I to respond to, please put it in the Q&A. If you don't put it in the Q&A, as you can tell, there are already 40 chats going on. We'll not be able to get to it. So please put it in the Q&A, and we'll do our very best to respond to all the questions within the next 60 minutes that we have. So without much ado, Tony, welcome, but I'm going to give you a good welcome once this video has been played. Let's play the video.
Thank you.
Well, I can't, first of all, think of another person that is more deserving of this award than Tony Speller. He is one of the most innovative leaders that I've had an opportunity to work with. There is not a single thing that you can propose to Tony that he can't find a solution for. Tony is incredibly intentional about making sure that everyone has a seat at the table. And he does that in a quiet and unassuming way, but he'll be the person that prompts the voice that has not been heard yet. And I think it's a really special character trait for Tony. He is one of the best mentors and coaches in the industry. He not only looks after diversity when you talk about people of color, he also has one of the most diverse teams in terms of women on his team. And that makes me really proud, certainly as a woman leader. But also, it's a challenge in technology, and he really has spent time mentoring and growing and coaching women in technology at Comcast and beyond our industry. Tony is just an amazing person. And interestingly, when I got to sit down and talk to Tony about him being selected for this award, he turned and looked at me with his big smile, which is one of his signature traits, and said, "This is not about me. This is about the team that I have the pleasure to lead."
Tony is probably the best coach that I've ever had. And I don't mean that as my boss, just as a human being. I can look at my life and how I think about business pre and post Tony, and I can tell you I'm a lot more effective since I met Tony. I sleep less, but I think more. He's able to bring people along in a way that is rare. He has frontline cred. For a senior executive, he can come to my XOC tech meetings and fit right in. That's why he's so effective. He's able to talk to a division president and a frontline tech with the same amount of credibility because of who he is. I think Tony fosters diversity and inclusion because he sees the ability of everybody from every walk of life. He needs to have diverse opinions. And I think it's represented in our team. I think it's represented in his leadership teams throughout time. And I think he's a great champion of diversity because he actually lives it. They call it spellarized for a reason. When Tony comes in your life, you become spellarized, and I am definitely spellarized.
Yeah, I will give the credit to my parents for pushing me, to be the leader that I am today. I would describe my leadership style as transformational. I like to lead with energy. I like to motivate people. I want people to be inspired that work for me. If I could go back in time in my career, probably one of the things I would do a little bit different is probably have a little bit more work-life balance. As a leader coming up in the organization, we always feel like we need to do everything. We need to be involved with everything. But the organization is much more powerful and your team is much more powerful when you're utilizing the full team to be able to help accomplish the goal. And that also helps you to grow other people and helps you bring out the talent in others as well.
All right. Welcome to the Spellarized Hour. That's all I'm going to call it, Tony. Tony, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
We're so thrilled to have you join us today. I'm excited about this conversation, and thank you for all the love, everybody. Tony, you are loved. I hardly ever see this many emojis at the beginning of a conversation. So I don't know what you did to get all these people to love you this much, but well done.
Oh, thank you. No, I have a high appreciation for them too, as well.
Thank you. So let's begin, Tony. I mean, when I was looking at this video and looking at your many accomplishments, I know you've been in the industry for over 35 years, right? Beginning as a technician and progressing to senior leadership roles. As you reflect on some of your defining moments or lessons, what are those that have really shaped your leadership philosophy?
Yeah, there's been a few that have really shaped, my leadership philosophy and also, my life and career. I go back and I think back to probably the most defining moment in my career was back when, I was in Chesapeake, Virginia. That's where I came up through the ranks as a cable installer, from an installer to a leader. I was very comfortable where I was very comfortable where I was. I wanted to, obviously continue to become a manager, continue to move up the ranks there. But then one day, we got an announcement that we're going through a transition where our particular region was going to be moved to another MSO. And I was very comfortable staying there, just doing my job. And I'll never forget it. I had a gentleman call me up and said, "Hey, Tony, we'd like you to continue to stay with us, take on a new challenge and, go to Chicago." And I remember thinking about that over and over. And to be honest with you, I was afraid to go to Chicago because I was very comfortable where I were and I had my goal on where I wanted to be. But this particular gentleman really challenged me in a very different way. And I'll never forget it. I can remember having a conversation with my wife saying, "Hey, I'm going to go downstairs tonight. I'm going to let this gentleman know I'm not going to take this role. I'm going to stay here, keep doing what I'm doing." And when I got on the phone with this gentleman, he said to me, when I gave him the news, he said, "Hey, Tony, I want to give you something to think about." He says, "You can stay where you are and never ultimately fulfill your full potential, or you can step outside of your comfort zone and come to Chicago and do something you've never done before." And I remember him saying that to me, and I said, "Well, I'm very comfortable where I'm at." And he asked me, he said, "So what are you afraid? You're afraid to do this?" And I turned around and I thought about it for a couple of minutes, and I said, "I am not afraid." And I said, "I'm coming to Chicago. I'll be there." And I remember running upstairs to my wife, and she says, "So I know you got to be glad that's all behind you." And I said, "No, I got some news for you." And she says, "What?" "We're going to Chicago." And that was a defining moment for me because I really had to step outside of my comfort zone, and that was really uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, he challenged something in you. I think, what I love about this is that sometimes if you're surrounded by great leaders, they can really see something in you that sometimes you may not see. And I think there's a common cliche that says, comfort is good, but nothing really ever grows there. So kudos to you on taking that. Nothing grows in comfort. It's just that, it's good to be comfortable. And I'm not, every time I say this, sometimes I really get a lot of feedback from our viewers where they go, "But what if I am where I need to be?" And that's good for you. As you're listening to us, be challenged, and sometimes growth is not just in one direction. It's in a myriad of directions, right? So when you talk about growth, I hope you all expand that definition of growth as not just up the ladder, but sometimes it's a wider depth scale, right? So thank you for that, Tony. So let's talk about having worked in different regions across the country. So from being comfortable to taking a challenge, how have these unique um, challenges and approaches to the different markets really influenced your leadership and style and how you go about problem solving?
Yeah, this is, I would say that all the regions and geographies that I've lived in and worked in, they have all shaped me to be who I am today. I learned something different in every single market. I learned something different from every person that I interacted with, and all those things had an impact on who I am today. I can remember, I think about when I went to Chicago, from Virginia to Chicago. Chicago was a very different environment. People, we tend to say people are people, but people are motivated by different things. Someone in Chicago may not be motivated by the same thing that someone is in Chesapeake, Virginia. And I can remember being in Seattle, Washington, where it's cloudy and it rains a lot, and someone there may not be motivated on the same thing as somebody in sunny Texas. But the one thing that you learn is that you have to, when you go into a new organization like that, you have to listen, take the time to listen, learn what's different about that organization. Yes, you're there for a reason because you have a skill, but you're also there to learn and make it better. And that's been one of the things that's been so instrumental to me in all of these moves, because people don't realize what you take away from each of them. You take something away from all different leaders, and it just doesn't even have to be a leader. It can also be someone even as close as your admin that you take something away from, because you learn from everyone. And so all of these experiences, working in, hurricane areas, to working in areas where it snows, where it rains, all the things that motivate people different and the things they do outside of work, they all shape you to become, someone and become the leader who you are today.
Yeah, I really like that, Tony. Let me just dig deep into that. When in one of our conversations, you made such an acute distinction between managing and leading people. And I would love for our audiences to hear how you see those two types of being a manager and leading people. And I really leaned into that. I would love for you to just kind of hopefully spell that out a little bit. Not to say speller, like spellerize it, but do share more about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I look at these things very different, right? When I think about leading, there's times when you have to stand up, you have to lead, and that comes in, challenging moments, difficult moments. That could be moments of a hurricane, that could be moments of a crisis. That's when people are counting on you to shift from being a manager. A manager keeps the operation going. They have a number of people that report to them on a day-to-day basis, but leading is something totally different. And I like to say, when tough times, when times get tough, we don't stand down, we stand up. We don't take cover, we take charge. I think we don't retract, we extend. I think that's what leadership is all about, is that there's a defined difference in leading. Leading is the moment, right? How I react to the moment, how you work with people, how do you motivate, encourage, and encourage people even during difficult time. It doesn't mean that you're not humbled or that you don't fear things is yourself. It's all about being able to take the courage and stand out and be able to get on the forefront, and to humble yourself and be able to ask for the input and for the input and feedback to be able to accomplish those things. And so I just look at those two scenarios. They're just so different, between managing and leading.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I just wanted, and I see people are really resonating with that. So thank you for that, crystallizing that. So we all know that leadership is a 24/7 in an operational environment. It's 24/7. It does, and it requires exactly what you said, resiliency and adaptability, right? So you're adapting as you're going into to different regions. You're adapting based on the team and the people you've been given. You're adapting to what motivates them and how to bring the best out of them. How do you sustain your energy and focus while leading such large and complex teams?
Yeah, this is, I think this one is really important because I have to be able to show up, right? You have to be able to show up as a leader. And when I think about all the things that I do every day, I need the energy, I need the tenacity to be able to, to come in with energy and be able to, motivate and be able to, be able to just think and come up with clear ideas and thoughts. And it all comes back to me around how, I take care of how I take care of myself, right? Um, I work out every single day. I haven't missed a day for and like over 7 years. And I know that may seem tough for people, but here is how I look at it, is that all the things I do every day as a leader, leading the organization, none of those things are going to be possible if I don't have the physical condition and health to be able to come in and motivate and be able to motivate and do the things that I do. So I look at the core of all of this is me being at my very best, as the most basic level. Tony, you need to show up well. I don't need to be tired. I need to be energetic. I need to be able to support others. I need to be able to bring the energy to the room. And I feel like that's one of the important things, one of the important things to me. And then I also have to mentally have these things that help me be able to, relax in my world. And, some of those things that I like to do, I have a passion towards classic cars, and kind of messing around with my classic cars because they're unique, they're different. And those little things make such a big difference for me and who I am and how I show up in the morning.
I really like that. If I can distill this, one, you are really disciplined and committed in this. I mean, when Tony was telling us about his workouts, everybody, I mean, it is quite impressive. But to be able to show up for 7 days without missing a day, at least goes to show you the mindset that he has and the discipline and the tenacity on those days when I don't know what your goal is. Some of us are very motivated by lofty goals, which is if I lose 20 pounds, I'm right there, that kind of stuff. And then after that, you gain it back and then you go back, right? So some of us live in that, but it shows discipline. It shows tenacity and a commitment to self. I truly believe that if you are not disciplined within you and you don't have enough in your tank, then you're really riding an empty car and it's not going anywhere. So kudos to you for that. And then that discipline is really applied to how you lead everything else, which is huge, huge. I commend you enough. I cannot even imagine that. Like, what do you commit to for more than 6 months, everybody? They said it takes 90 days to form a habit, but then imagine 7 years of rigorous discipline. And then when you talk about your passion and your hobbies, it reminds us to find that thing that fuels us, right? What takes you to that place where you get refueled and you're passionate and it's separate from your day-to-day work or your title and what you do, but it's just a place where you get recharged and you can come back and you're able to give. So Tony, thank you for sharing that. I mean, the team was so impressed with that. We're like, oh my goodness, we felt challenged to do something maybe for more than 100 days. How about that? um, Speaking for myself, of course, not for the rest of the team. So let's jump into kind of this, like your team is complex and your team is diverse and in every sense of the word diversity, from levels to thought to technical abilities. And so what are the most important qualities that you look for when you're developing future leaders?
I look for, I think you'll hear a lot of people say, hey, I'm looking for integrity, and people start off with the basics, but I consider those things foundational level, or if I was planting a tree, that's the soil, right? You have to have that to even start, to even get into to even begin. The things that I look for is, can they motivate people, right? Can you motivate people? Humans need to be motivated. Can you challenge them and do it in a way where they're inspired? I can motivate, I can challenge people, I can inspire them. And one of the important things is, can you get them to follow, right? Are they willing to, can you get people to follow? And meaning, will they follow the mission? Will they, will they go after, will they take the charge with you on the things that you're trying to do? And so as I look around the table, I look for people who have those things. They have the tenacity, they have the will, they're motivated, they want to motivate, and they want to inspire. And even if they're not, they don't have to perfect those things, because we can learn them. The key is, you have the core foundation of those things there? Because I find that those are the leaders around my table that are going to be able to help me win, and going to be able to help the organization win, because they believe in what's possible. They may not know the answer to what's possible, but they believe in what's possible.
Therein, Tony, therein lies what a leader is. Do you know that? The ability for people to trust you, to follow, and to believe. That's leadership, right? That they may not know what they believe in, but they believe that that is possible, and that you've endeared that level of trust. Because that the number one currency in all that is trust,
It is.
right? It's trust. Like, you can build all you want, but if there's no trust, I'm a huge believer in that. If there's no trust, no one's following you anywhere. But if they're willing to follow you, that is leadership. We know that you in our discussions, and when you were nominated for this phenomenal award, we were told that your team had achieved record high satisfaction scores, right? And that your customers as well. So what are the leadership principles that have contributed to that culture of accountability and pride?
Yeah, it is the team has really, raised the bar. They've done, such a great job. And I would tell you that what's really, contributed to that is, number one, is I have to be there to be able to support them with the goals that were, I can't just kick those goals out there and then, leave it for people to, they're going to figure out how to get there. But I have to be able to support them and have the support system to be able to help them, help them be successful. I think we've done a really good job of, following through on the things that are important. I'll give you a good example. One of the things that is super important to me is what I call my EMPS scores, right? How motivated are my employees? And the reason why we have such high motivation scores is not because we have easy goals or we set anything, easy for anyone. It's because we listen to those results. And I actually spend time every cycle. I actually read through every one of the comments, and my teammates, we actually host a call with our leaders and get feedback from them on, what is happening in their organization, what made the score go which way, what do they need from us to be successful. And we've been able to solve so many things because people know that they're not just putting something into a survey. They know we're actually listening to it and responding to it. And many of actions have come out of that. And when you look at things like some of our, how this has resonated all the way down to our, into our performance, we end up with the best TMPS and results in the entire company because people feel like we're supporting them. We're giving them the tools that they need. We're listening to them, but also we're very candid about when we don't have the answer or we can't do something too. Because that's one thing I would call it, just being very transparent. Because one of the things that we're really good about doing as a team, if the answer is we don't know, we honestly don't know. And we'll be the first to tell you that, but also that we'll do everything we can to try to solve it. And so I just sum it up by saying it's follow through action items, it's listening, and is supporting people with the things they need, and is being very transparent with what we can do and what we can't do.
I really like that. Yeah, being people are really appreciate candor, especially in today's world, and really knowing that if I tell you something, that you're actually going to act on it. That's called delivering on the promise, and I really like that. Let's kind of go into technology and innovation. You have often emphasized the importance of being relentless and reliable. As you're thinking about the key areas that have really helped you improve in terms of your service quality, your customer experience, leveraging technology? What are some of those things that you can share with our audiences? I think a lot of people here are really focused on that customer. And so we want to learn from the very best, the people with the highest scores, Tony, and tell us what you are doing and how you're leveraging technology to do that.
Yeah, there's a number of things that are happening there to be able to deliver that experience to the customer. One is we've done a really good job on the tool development and bringing our employees new innovative tools. Some of those are AI driven tools to be able to help them do their jobs better. I think the piece that has helped us really well is the engagement that we do with the employees as we're putting those tools out into the market, because we'll bring our employees in early, to be able to test and be able to be part of it, and also make sure that it's got all the solutions, all the solutions that they have. And so I would say, this ownership around, everyone owns the customer, providing our employees with the best tools to be able to get them done. And then I think there's some other unique things that have contributed to that also as well, even outside of technology, more around culture too, right? Is that we look at things like trouble calls, and everybody in my operation owns trouble calls and contribute to it in some way to make sure that we're reducing activity in the business. We also all take ownership to customer growth too. And that's whether that's through never letting a customer leave, giving a customer a reason to leave. That's why we want to deliver the best experience to them when we go out to their home and have this high satisfaction. And then we also look at things like, everything around like outages and impacts to our network. We kind of look at this almost like a challenge among each of us as teammates, and how do we reduce the most impactful events? How do we prevent them from happening? And so if you can just sort of envision, there's almost like this competition within, where a healthy competition where every region and everyone in our division wants to deliver the highest satisfaction when we knock on a door, and everyone want to have the lowest outages in the network. And then also when all things fail and they break, we also want to be the first to be able to complete them and resolve them for our customers. And so I would just tell you, there's just such a huge focus around the experience that goes from tools to technology to culture that gets us to the results that we have.
Well, I really, really like that because, sometimes when you're really thinking about the technical space, especially today when we're talking about AI, and I'm actually kind of getting you to that AI question that I have for you, is we're thinking so much about technology. And while it's great and we need to, there's no escaping that it's here to simplify processes, systems, and whatever capabilities we need it to do. There's a certain component that sometimes shifts so much towards the tools and the technology, and culture gets left behind. And what I like to say is culture will eat your strategy for lunch. If you don't
That's
take care
right.
of culture, it will eat your strategy for lunch. So I'm so glad that you really are paying attention to that aspect of your growth of your people and how you're managing the tools as they come into the foray of what we do today, but being able to really prioritize culture before all that, because AI will not create culture. It will not. It just won't. But let's talk about how you are using AI to really leverage some of the customer service, improving quality, reliability. How have you incorporated AI, and how is that training going to really bring everybody on board? Because anytime there's an adaptability of a new tool, there's always the threat of what it can do to somebody else, right? So how do you ease that?
Yeah, and so I think we're doing a really good job of integrating AI into the business and into our tools, and we're doing it, I would say, and I'll kind of say it in three ways that we're doing it. One, on the customer experience side is where we're trying to make it easier for our customers to be able to interact with us, for our customers to be able to solve issues or being able to get help and support through Comcast. And that's more on the customer experience or customer, call it, sort of the customer side of it. The other way is really making our employees' jobs easier. And what I mean by this is utilizing AI in a way. I think back, I said at the beginning of this call, I came up through the ranks as a frontline technician. I think back in the days when I was out chasing an outage in the street. I would get an outage. I go from street to street with my tools and climbing a pole, trying to figure out where this event is. Now we've integrated AI into our tools. And what the tools are doing for us is doing pattern detection and giving us a proximity in terms of where this actual event is happening at. And so I think about, like, an example, in the last hurricane that we had, some of our AI tools, they were essential during the hurricane because we had so many fiber breaks and so many breaks in the network. And what it was doing basically was looking out into the network, and it would tell me exactly where I had fiber breaks on some of our fiber telemetry tools. And we could send people out and fix them, before the power company even restored the services out there. So it helped us to be able to restore in record time. And so employees see that as a way of making, really making my job easier, and helping me be able to be at my very best. Because the thing that, I think concerns everybody with AI is that the fear that, hey, is AI taking away something from me? No, AI is not going to take anything away. It's going to complement the things we do today and be able to help our employees, really, really, do a great job. And you're going to continue to see that on the tools and innovation, as we continue to add more and more tools throughout the next several years.
I really like that. I want to say, please keep the questions coming. We have one question. This one's going to talk about leadership. And this person would like you to elaborate on why it's so important to have a good home/life balance. And is it a prerequisite to put your career before your family if you have to be a leader with Comcast?
Yeah, well, I will tell you that one of the number one things you learn that I learned as a leader is you're not going to strike work-life balance. It's going to be work-life integration. And I can explain that a little bit more. I can remember I worked a number of years and thinking as a leader that, hey, I'm going to get to work-life balance. I'm going to get to work-life balance. Work-life balance would imply that someday you're going to split things down the middle, 50-50 between work and between home. And I can't think of a day that you're going to show up at work and you're going to be like, hey, boss, I can do 48% of this week. And, I do, because I need to do 50% at home. It has to become work-life integration over time. And that was the one thing that I learned, is that I was waiting and waiting and waiting for that to happen. And it was never happening. And I was putting things off that I know I should be doing at home as well. And then I, came to the conclusion one day, hey, let me look at this a little bit different. Let me stop trying to wait for a day that I'm going to balance 50-50. And why don't I get to what I call integration? And integration means I'm going to have a great time at work. I'm going to take care of the things that are important, but also I'm going to integrate life into that. Meaning I may have a day where it's 70, where I spend 70% of my time, on work. But you can best believe that 30% that I integrated from home was a great 30% of my time. And then there's days it could be vice versa. And so the advice that I would give to all the leaders out there is that, don't wait for work-life balance, integrate it. get to work-life integration, integrate it into what you do, integrate your life into what you do. And that's made me such a more effective leader at work. And then also it's made me better at home, because I have now the integration there, and I feel good about the balance and everything that I do. Because I know if the day is heavy, I know tomorrow is going to could be a very different day. And so look at it towards work-life integration, because that would be the way I would define it.
That's such a good response. I have had many responses over the years to this very question, and that was actually absolutely spot on. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, look at all the love. Yeah, let's all take that integration in. We're getting spellarized, right? Um, let's talk about the future of connectivity and
Mhm.
and leadership in that space. What do you see as the biggest technological shift on the horizon for telecommunications, and how should companies prepare for it?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty significant shift that will happen over the next several years. And the way I would describe it is, I would describe it as convergence. And you know, it's almost like one you almost got to close your eyes and think about here. But let me see if I can paint a picture for everybody here. If you think about what's happened with broadband just over the last several years, right? We started streaming on broadband. You think about the Wi-Fi. Think about years ago, we weren't talking about Wi-Fi in the way we talk about it today. You think about some of the bigger events that have taken place through Super Bowl, Olympics, 4K, the things that we just that with Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. You think about all those things that have happened over the last several years. That is probably about this much of what's going to happen. And when I talk about convergence, I just see a day where all of the tools, the products, the things that we have in our home, the things we take out of our home are all going to start to converge. And that's going to be, that's going to be technology, talking to technology, being educated upon everything that's happening in the home. When you pull the car into the driveway, intelligence on what's happening in the room downstairs based on Wi-Fi, the power of Wi-Fi motion. I just see this convergence of technology coming together, because I think the days of a la carte technology is not gonna, I don't think that is gonna scale over time. And if you look at, a lot of companies are out building broadband and building out on network, but I call it a la carte broadband is what's happening. And then you think about they're bringing a video product. It's an a la carte video product. But the bigger question is, what can you do with all of that stuff? How do you make it all converge, and not just the stuff that you sell as an MSO, but all the things that others offer? And how do you get those things to share information, to share data, to be able to to be able to create new technology? I think we're going to see something that's just going to be so different, that's going to really blow everyone away. And it's going to start with broadband and wireless. All those things are going to come together in such a converged way for the future. And I think the power, whether you're in a home or whether you're in a business or whether you're standing out and you're connected to a hotspot, I think the experience is going to follow you everywhere you go. And so that's sort of the vision that I have. I just got this huge vision around convergence, and I see it starting to happen. And I think the winner of all of this is going to be the one who gets out and start to do that now.
I really like that really insightful outlook. And I sometimes wonder, I don't see personally, and I don't see our tech companies readily embracing this. It's being pushed by the consumer. It is being pushed by me, this end user person who does not really want a particular product that does X, but I want to be able to speak to a product that does all this. So I'm hoping that this convergence is happening not just in terms of the output and the products that we're putting out, but it's happening as companies need to come together to build a product that makes them all stronger instead of staying in their little bubbles and saying, this is my pie and I want to hold on to this pie and I know you're not allowed to that pie. What do you say to that? Like is the consumer the driver of the convergence, or are we still going to see this fight between I want to be so unique and I'm going to have 5G and you're going to have, like, how
I
do you see that?
I think the companies that are, I think the bigger innovative companies like Comcast and some of the other MSO, I think they see that, and I think they're going to want the convergence because you said it really well. Staying in my swim lane, having something unique. It's great to have something that's unique, but how does that uniqueness fall in the line with other technologies? And that's where the power is going to come from. That's where the power is going to come from on, I believe, in the future, from, the larger, more powerful MSOs who really, really want to bring it all together from a technology standpoint. Because I see that vision. I see it right now. I have a lot of things that sit in their swim lanes when I walk into the home, or whether I'm out on the street. But that day is going to come, and people are going to have to, sort of drop their shields and say, hey, let's look at a bigger future here and how we bring all these technologies together, because you really should you should be able to know everything about the interactions in your home, what outside of the home, from your vehicles, everything. And I just see a day where it's all going to happen. And I don't think it's going to be that far away. And I think the person or the companies that do that, when we talk about the products that don't exist today, because there's probably like 5 or 6 products that don't exist today, they're going to be the ones that are going to be ready for those products because they're going to build a network that can converge and be able to interact with all these technologies.
Yeah, I am so excited for the future, and I see it through the lens of my sons who so readily embrace technology in a way that's actually a bit scary. And I'm not that old, but I think I'm the generation that has grown up with technology, and we came from the Big Macs, the big thing, whatever it was called, and we went to the cell phone. So I'm that generation but then they have been, as I call it, they don't have umbilical cords, they have USB cords, like when they're born, like literally, So they are consuming technology in a manner that they want it to be efficient, and it needs to be quick, and it needs to make sense to them. And so when I see how, even in the home, my youngest child has the easiest life with technology, because how his lights come on, how his phone talks to his computer, how he has like the security system of the house, and it's with such ease that and if they don't talk to each other, then it's a place of consternation. And that is the lens of a teenager. Who is your consumer for tomorrow in 5 years, less than 5 years? So it's a pretty cool. I love the convergence. I'm going to go with that. So Tony, let's reflect. We were looking at the future, and I want you to look back to the past, and I want you to think of your younger self, the younger Tony. If you could give yourself one piece of career advice, what would it be and why?
Yeah, it would have been, I should have, I would have I would have had more balance. We talked about the integration a few minutes ago. I didn't know what integration meant back then. I would have had, more balance, because I was, just so focused on career and work. And, I probably missed a few important things at home that I probably shouldn't have missed, right? Because I was so, so committed and wanting to get everything done and be on top of things. And I also would have probably been a better delegator back then too, because as a new leader, you tend to, and you think about, the path that I came from a frontline, installer, which meant that, my focus was on doing everything perfect to get to a leader and to get to where I was at. And so as I came through the ranks, you feel like, hey, you need to be involved with everything. You need to be engaged in everything. If I had to look back, I would have delegated more, to other people, because that's a development opportunity. And it's something that I've grown now over the years. I've grown into it. I feel like I feel like I can do that really well. But when you delegate, that's passing the ball to someone else and saying, hey, I trust you to get it done. And guess what? You know what? If it don't happen exactly the way it should, I'm going to be here to help support you and we'll get it right together. And so that's been, something as I look back, I would have done it sooner, in my career, and the fact, I see the benefits that it does for me now, because I see all these leaders that are, they feel empowered, they feel inspired because you give them these things and you trust them. And then also the bigger reward for them is, as they're getting these things accomplished, you can see the pride in their eyes of being able to take on these big things and develop. And so that would be the one area that, if I had to go back, I would have I would like to have struck a better balance there.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you. So everybody, we're going to get into one of my favorite segments, which is the rapid fire segment. And my apologies, the sun is coming in, the afternoon sun. So if you all can see it, yes, the afternoon sun is in my face. So my apologies for that. So Tony, are you ready? We're going to do a quick rapid fire. Let's see.
Yeah.
What's the best leadership advice you've ever received? Ever.
You know, the best leadership advice I've ever received was never to assume on critical things, validate. Never assume, validate. That was one of the most critical things that I've learned, because a lot of times we assume someone knows your intent. We assume someone knew what to do. And that was something that, I learned, and it's really helped me to be effective over the years. Never assume, validate.
Oh, I love that. I really love that. Taking notes, taking notes. If you had to describe your leadership style in 3 words, what would they be?
I would say resilient. Um, I can take a lick and keep on ticking here, right? Like the old saying used to be, is you have to be resilient. And that's something I built over time, the resiliency. The other is courage. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to put out different ideas and thoughts, because what's the worst thing that happens? It's not a good idea. We move on, right? And so I have, I feel like I have courage. And the other one I would say is passion, because the passion fuels me to be able to get things done.
I like that. So we did have a question about what motivates you at work, and I hope that person just got the answer to that very question as he was explaining that. What's one piece of technology that you can't live without?
I can't live without I can't live without my phone. And I would tell you, I can't live without my phone. And the reason why is that my phone brings so many other things to me in terms of staying connected, because it to me is important to stay connected. And my phone brings my, keeps me connected, brings my, connection to apps and all kinds of things that I'm very close to. And that's the one technology I can't give up. I'd probably be pacing the hallway if you took my phone away from me today.
Thank you for sharing that. I will bear that in mind next time I use it as a punishment by taking someone's phone away from them. Thank you for sharing that. What's the most unexpected lesson you've learned in your career?
Yeah, I would say, really stepping out. I would really call it just stepping outside of my comfort zone here. And this has been I think one of the biggest ones for me is that I don't think people realize how much better you will perform when you're not in your comfort zone. Stepping outside of my comfort zone, I feel like I perform at my very best when I'm not comfortable because I'm thinking, I'm forcing myself to look for a way to be able to get things done, a different way to be able to get it done from the normal way. And so I think one of the biggest thing I've learned in that, as I moved around and I went, to organizations where I didn't have a go-to person, I didn't know anybody when I got off the airplane, being outside of my comfort zone sort of forced me to think different, do things different, and be a different person and show up in a very different way. And so that's been one that's been, I would say, it's been instrumental to me.
I like that. So if you weren't in telecommunications, what other career would you have pursued?
You know, I I think I think I would have enjoyed teaching. And the reason why teaching is a two-way subject, right? Teaching is learning because I like learning, right? I think I would enjoy that because I love to share information. I love to teach people what I know. I love to unload anything that I have acquired over the years and be able to share that with other people. And I just love watching them take the things that you exchange with them on and watch them innovate and do it even different after you teach them. And so I would say teaching would be the one that I would probably enjoy, teaching.
I really love that. Tony, it has been fantastic. I can never believe how quickly time goes by, but we are down to 4 minutes. Let me see if I have another question. Actually, it's not a question. It says, just want to thank Tony for taking a chance on some of us. He keeps us engaged and focused on continuing to try and improve. He's like the dad you do not want to let down. Oh, I think, whoever you are, I don't know why you're anonymous, but that was so nice. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And Tony, I want to thank you on behalf of NAMIC, on behalf of NAMIC's leadership and all our lovely members for being here with us, for teaching us today, for doing exactly what you would have done. You've been a teacher and we've been a student, and we've learned so much from you. I want to thank all our participants who joined us for the last hour. I realize that time is valuable and you chose to share it with us. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the love. And thank you for being standing with NAMIC and our mission to educate and to empower and to help you accelerate wherever direction you're choosing to go. NAMIC will be there for you. I have been your moderator, Anne Marie Burton. And with that, see you next month. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you.
Bye bye.